before I get into it, I know Muskoka Brewery is very much a values-oriented type of brewery, and the reason why I have this up here, and I won't spend very much time on it at all, but this is our why statement, our purpose, or vision, and in the middle you can see is to make a difference in our communities, and that was a big element for us to ensure that we continue to instill in our vision, and ensure that we contribute to our community the best we can. How we do that, quite honestly, is through our values. So we make decisions based on our values, we hire based on our values, reward based on our values. And some of the key ones that are here is really looking at the thirsty, and that's not just about making great beer and enjoying it at the end of the day. We do that, not as much right now with all COVID stuff, but we do that. But it's really more about on that caring side. And it's talking about supporting each other and our three communities, and trying to make our communities a better place. And our communities are our team, our neighborhoods, and our industry. So what is living wage? I know that was touched on already, but it is basically, it is not a minimum wage. I think that's first and foremost. And it's really based on the basic needs of an individual, and it's a family of four. So I think the example that we actually walked through today in the simulation was that family of four. But it is about two adults also working full time in that family. And it's basically that wage rate that is literally just above that poverty line. There's no gap there. It's just right there. So there are some more current stats that were shared today, but this one I've been sharing since 2016, and because I think it's a powerful one. It's just the amount of Canadians that are actually working and living in poverty, and I think that's a really important element, is that they're working full time, yet they're not getting ahead, and that really resonates strongly with me and the breweries and our passion to move a living wage. But one thing I think is really interesting is really this part of the slide here is who we think is actually making a minimum wage versus who in reality is making a minimum wage. And I think this needs to be an eye-opener for a lot of us to understand the statistics versus the stereotypes that we might consider as a minimum wage is usually quite different. So just to jump into our journey, for sure, we worked strongly with Prompt to bring living wage calculation into the Muskoka region. And how we did that, or why we did that, is actually, it was when I first started in 2015 with the brewery. Gary, who was a former president, and I actually sat down and we were trying to figure out what the team needed. You know, they went through a bunch of increases to try and get to what they thought a reasonable entry level rate was. And it didn't seem to make a difference. You know, they still were experiencing a lot of challenges with turnover, attraction, efficiencies were not very high, technical competencies were not enough, that were affecting productivity and the efficiency, and the overall engagement of the team, especially in a specific department, was actually really quite low. You know, the brewery was doing lots of fun activities, but they weren't participating in it, and there lots of questions around all the whys around that. So we really wanted to, first, you know, this is a very traditional way of looking at it in HR perspective, is you look at the market comparatives. What are other manufacturers paying? You know, are we sitting competitively with that? And we were. And so we felt like, well, is that enough? And so then we really wanted to dive in to understand what that is. Like, how much does our team need to make to live and work in Muskoka? And so that's when we actually started to do some research online. We actually found a calculation happening in Peterborough at the time, and then linked in with Tom from Living Wage Network. And so in speaking with Tom, he's like, oh, well, you won't believe it. Prompt has reached out to me too. So we connected with Prompt, and then we became our committee. A really great group of people that, you know, really dedicated to change within the local region. And it was a great adventure for us to really connect and link arms. So we developed, we worked together to come up with the cost of what a family of 4 would need to make. That calculation, for those that might not know, is actually an approved calculation through a government body. And then basically they come back to us to say if that rate is approved. So once we got to that point, we were able to make the big announcement. So you can see at the bottom corner here where that's our committee. And then this is the one beside it. The longer version is actually the Ontario Living Wage group that's also there too. But collectively together as a committee, and it's something that, you know, I hold very dearly, is that, you know, together we passionately believe that no working families should be living in poverty. And I think that is probably the first and foremost for me in a passionate perspective is really that statement. So why did we join the movement? I just want to walk through this, and I'll try and do it quickly. I tend to ramble on this one, but there is a pay it forward element for sure to it. And I think first and foremost is our team. So this is actually a picture that you see here of our team members that would have been, you know, directly impacted by the announcement that we did that day. It was a Friday afternoon, the line was running, and they shut down the line, came out, celebrated it, and then went back to work. The team was really engaged in it and very proud of it. And it was something that we really wanted to make a difference on and to help in their daily lives, quite honestly, as well. But it wasn't just this team that celebrated. And I think this really speaks really strongly to the holistic team that we have at the brewery. It was, you know, a variety of different roles that never got impacted when we brought in a living wage. We gave those increases quite substantially, but not to everybody. And yet everybody on the team celebrated it. And they're really proud to be a part of it. And I think that really helped to bring our culture together and remove some of those barriers that previously existed as well. So in the why perspective of our team, I've created a really simple formula. In the past, I've had lots of people ask me, well, what was that percentage? I don't have that. I probably never will. But I think for us, what is more meaningful is really this formula. And so a healthy employee is a productive employee. A happy employee is an engaged employee. And when you have a healthy and happy employee, you've got that productivity, you've got that engagement, your business is going to move forward. And so what the impacts were, our quality significantly improved. The efficiencies definitely improved. We actually brought a new canning line in that was substantial shift for where we were to where we are. And we needed that technical ability or people that were ready for change and take that on. And I think that was a really important one because we were able to attract the right people and retain the right people as well. The benefit costs, I know there's a little bit of conversation around the healthcare benefits, and we actually saw a reduction in utilization. It didn't happen right away. I would say after a year, it did. The normalization and the cost of prescription drugs actually decreased, which was a really interesting outcome. And then also just the support of each other. And I think one of the biggest things, although not necessarily a part of this formula, is really the conversations that changed in our lunchroom. So I do remember one time talking to the team and having a coffee and you know, the conversations that were happening behind, and you know, part of HR, you need to be observant, was this conversation around a kid's birthday party, and the mother she didn't want to send her son because they couldn't afford the gift for the other child. So that was a bit heartbreaking for me, to be honest with you. I'm like, oh, that's like just heart-wrenching. And then after a while, when we brought living wage in, that conversation really started to change around that lunchroom table. And I think that really makes, it really enforces that we're doing good, to be honest with you, and we're making a difference with our team. Is that, you know, now it's the conversations like, hey, do you want to go out into the town? We can go get, you know, like a hot chocolate or something like that. They're much more socially engaged with our community, and they're socially engaged with each other as well. So that became a really good turning point for us. And then we realized also that it isn't just about our team, it's a much broader picture. And for those that might know Muskoka Brewery, because I know we've got some Muskoka on the call here, we're celebrating 25 years this year. The first 10 years of those 25 were really tough. It was a challenge just to keep the lights on, the doors open, so to speak. And it was really, truly that Bracebridge community that invested in that brewery and gave back to that brewery. We've got some of our clients were the first ones to put Muskoka Brewery on tap, Old Station, and continue to do so when our relationship is really strong. But when we bring that living wage perspective, we really looked at it also as, how do we give back to the community? And there is that social engagement element, but there's also, Muskoka is a very seasonal type of small business place to work and live. And how do we create a much more year-round economic model? And I think bringing that living wage up, allowing our local community to continue to spend locally, really helps to accelerate that much faster. The other element that we really looked at too is really the support of our vision. We want to make sure that we were making a difference to our communities. We also making a difference throughout. And, one element that we really want to talk to was about how it's not just Muskoka Brewery doing this. There's a lot of great companies that are doing it. There's a lot of great people doing great work. And how do we support that in any way we can? And, when we started to have that mindset and connecting with other people, as was mentioned with Rob, that we did become Canada's first living wage brewery. And the element of that was actually enormous. And, a small, local brewery, to have that PR reach, quite honestly, that this happened, actually created an extra win for ourselves. And this is just to show kind of that brand health, because I think it's really important that we want to contribute to the community, but a lot of when we look at business to business type of conversation, there's a lot of conversation around the brand, about, the social responsibility, and all very much on a corporate standpoint. And there's a really strong business case for becoming a living wage employer that talks about brand health, that I think is an important part to have in the conversation. So for the brewery itself, in the first 5 months when we became a living wage, and we got acceleration because we ended up finding out that we were the first brewery, but the reach was just phenomenal. So you can see, 16 million reach, the amount of stories that were made with us, the opportunity for broadcast, and just continuing to spread the word about living wage was really, really phenomenal. We got a lot of strong customer engagement, and the outcome was really positive in that one as well. There's a lot of people wanting to contribute to organizations that are doing good in a community perspective. And so, one of the quotes that's probably my favorite and has been for a while, but I'll just read this out because it makes me laugh. So this summer, if you want to enjoy a top-notch craft brewery with a side of social justice, check out this terrific brewery and what they have to offer. It's a great saying, not just about the brewery, but really the cause and the power that the cause can have in a consumer perspective as well. So for us in the brewery, it's really about keeping the communication strong, and I love having this opportunity to chat and share our story with this great group of people as well. But we want to make sure that we are continuing to make meaningful change and being part of the conversation and contributing. We also aligned with the Better Way Alliance, that were really, before they were branded as the Better Way Alliance, they were 15 Fairness, was a big activity of theirs as well. We continue to work with Living Wage Ontario as well as Canada, and continue to share our story as well. For us, one of the big learnings that we also had out of this was really that win-win proposition. And there's a lot of conversation happening right now around kind of the terminology changes that are happening around corporate social activism versus the traditional corporate responsibility. And there's a lot of content here. And I think living wage and making sure that, you know, people are being treated fairly is a really important step. And I think for the brewery, when we jumped into a living wage, there was a ton of learning for us to have there, and we wanted to continue to accelerate it. And so for us, you know, we're trying to continue to do good and contribute to our community in various ways. We've got a community venture fund that we've been running for the last 3 or 4 years, where we're not just giving the support in a charity perspective, but we're rolling up our sleeves and, as you can see, doing the water testing and doing the digging for the trails. But it's a great way to engage our team and keep them connected, and you know, ultimately that supports all of these elements. Right now we're also looking at, we've partnered with the Grit Rail movement, which is on the LGBTQ plus community. That really, if you guys haven't checked them out, they're great. Women in governance, making sure that we've got women parity opportunities. Swim, Drink, Fish is really about our waterways, because we're very passionate about that in Muskoka, and really making sure that we've got an environment that is very much inclusive. It's really talking for us in the language that we're using. It's really a pint for change. You know, how can we make a really big impact that is good for our team, good for our local neighborhoods, and good for our overall industry as well. And so that's been our journey. And I think, you know, we've been a living wage employer and super proud to be it since 2016. There's been some conversations today about the calculation of a living wage, which is written as 1585. I will be honest with you, that is the 2016 rate. It does need to get updated. We're in talks on how to do that right now, but that is something to note, that a new calculation should be coming out. We're hoping in November. But yeah, I hope that's enough. I hope I didn't go over time, but I'm happy to also answer any questions you have, and thanks for having me.